Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video I wanted to do for you because I actually used my AI agent to rebalance my portfolio. But before I go there, if you're coming here for the first time, please like and subscribe. I love doing these videos. It's actually my glide path to retirement. And today, what I wanted to show is something that I think you'd be interested in just because it is an actual implementation of a retirement plan. But I did a little differently. I started using my tools. Okay, so today what I did was I used two of the tools that I've been using very, very frequently. One is Boldin, the other is AI. But today's scenario is around portfolio optimization. And there's a number of tools that I use to do that. Not a number, but two. One is by a company called Portfolio Metrics. And the other one is my AI tool. Now, if you watch my video about AI, I made a AI agent. I guess it's what you call vibe coding, but it's essentially, you're not really coding, you're kind of prompting the engine. But what I did for this, because by no means I'm an AI expert. However, I have curated a lot of information and collecting it that helps me make my decisions. And a lot of it is research papers, others like performance data, etc. What I did was I just took it all together and I put it into my AI engine alongside with just basic mechanics around portfolio allocation. Now, what's amazing about AI is that it's able to go find its own methods of doing things. But however, what it does know how remember things about you, and that's kind of why I paid for Claude, which in my opinion is the best AI engine for this because it's very good numerically. It also produces output that's absolutely amazing. But the other thing also is that the only way to get kind of the results you want is to pay for it. You need the compute cycles, those tokens. So I've been using Claude and AiRA, which is my AI agent, to do my portfolio analysis. Now, let me just tell you kind of what's going on in the world and with me a little bit. So just recently, we just captured Maduro. There's a lot of uncertainty in the stock market, a lot of uncertainty in our economy. You know, I've been talking with a lot of friends, colleagues, just catching up with them. And surprisingly, a lot of them are laid off. And in fact, there's just been a gentleman just recently, he's blown up on the internet, and he did a video about himself being laid off. He was in tech. And there's a lot of people now at a strange crossroads in their careers, many of whom could be older, like 50s, like myself, others who are younger, who have a longer runway. But yeah, that sucks to be out of work, especially because you can't save. So that's kind of the state of our economy. However, if you are in the stock market, you got to admit, it's been on gangbusters. I mean, I've been rebalancing my portfolio in anticipation of retirement. It has gone up. I had to make a decision about my family's status of what we're doing. Personally, I would rather be in Thailand making videos about it and just doing that and just saying I'm retired. But as you know, there's a lot of decisions as a husband and father you have to make that just doesn't torpedo a family plan. And so that's kind of where I'm at today. I'm in preparation of potentially just really calling it a day. And I have a taxable account that I'm going to just deplete until we have no money in that account. And then from there, decide. But in preparation for that decision, I've started to set up the bucket strategy. So if you're not familiar, the bucket strategy is essentially a asset allocation strategy to kind of help you weather the downturns in the stock market. Essentially, people use what they call 3-bucket. I've seen 4-bucket too. I use 2-bucket. The 3-bucket is essentially just have a cash sleeve, an income sleeve, and a growth sleeve. Sleeve meaning an account or accounts. But my strategy is the following. I really am a strong proponent of the stock market. I want to remain involved. So I've got a significant amount of money in my growth sleeve, my stock market sleeve. And if you were to look at my portfolio, people, even AI said the same. It's like, whoa, so much in tech and this and that. Well, yeah, a lot of it is in the S&P 500. But remember, look at the S&P 500 and see how over time it has done well. And that's the thing. Compounding really happens later in your life, right? As you set it and forget it, that for me, compounding has already taken effect. And all it's doing is increasing the compounding for me. My goal at this point in my life, as many people who are probably in my age category, it's wealth preservation. That's what many people who are younger need to create wealth. But once you're older, it's wealth preservation. So with that theme, I started to enact on my portfolio. And so I'm going to show you how I used AiRA, which is my AI agent, specifically to rebalance my portfolio from growth heavy to income ready in one session. And so it was not a, here's a dump of all my stuff, let's use it against the model and see what the numbers spit out. It's truly a conversation with the engine that, like a human being, I told it what I needed to do. It's challenging me with questions, but it already knew things that would really matter to me, and it's remembered that. And taking those data points about what it knows about me in conjunction with what it needs to do, the result was really astonishing, and I really liked what it produced for me. So here was my situation. If you're looking on the screen here, before today, I was 88% growth and 12% income. So the issue was it was way too aggressive for someone about to retire. This, by the way, is all being generated by Claude, by AiRA. AiRA is my agent. With kind of how our portfolio was structured, we were making about $1,500 a month in passive income, which I would automatically reinvest. But we have a somewhat of a higher nut that we wanted to cover, about 10,000 bucks a month. So, we're short. The other thing that it recognized, and this is not even AiRA just explaining this to me, but I love tech. If you've probably enjoyed the fruits of the stock market, it was probably in the Magnificent Seven, but I just happened to get lucky. I've been accumulating Apple for almost like 15 years, and I like the company. It's a funny thing, I don't have a lot of their products. I have a couple of Macs. My children has an iPhone, but we're primarily, I'm a Samsung user, so don't shoot me. But yeah, Apple as a company is super well run, obviously tons and tons of cash. They're the bellwether of our tech progress, but now it's gonna change, right? Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Meta, these are the companies that are really kind of the forefront of tech. But I love tech. It's made me where I could be today, but obviously I have too much concentration, and that's what AiRA was saying. So the other thing also is we don't want to be in a bad sequence of returns. And right now we're at like the top of the S&P 500. And it could continue to go up. And right now when I say it's the top, it could just be one portion of the slope where the top is much higher. But what happens if the market does crash? Remember last year when Trump came into office and nobody understood what his tariffs were going to do to the economy? You should see what things happen. And with the amount of uncertainty at that time, it's probably pretty scary. 2020 hindsight, it's been fantastic. In fact, that was a time when you should have been accumulating securities. So nonetheless, always be buying. But the theme that I wanted to tell AiRA was I needed to shift from wealth building mode to wealth preservation and income mode without having to worry about selling in a bad market. That's really, that's just common sense. So I started to ratchet down the amount of exposure that I had into the growth. I still want it, and you should always continue to have that sleeve because that's the portion that's going to help you. When you look at Boldin or any of these modeling tools, when it says your net worth at a certain point, that's the portion that has to grow. AiRA was trying to build me a 3-bucket strategy because in the original case somebody took my application, AiRA would help you make a 3-bucket strategy. But for me, I'm not convinced about the cash piece because I figured if you have an income sleeve, which is a combination of bonds and income like covered calls, dividend, if you lump those together, you can be in a position at that point, I believe it's going to grow. And every month, these covered call strategies like SPYI, QQQI, they produce income every month. So as long as you're reinvesting that, you still have time to make a decision on whether or not you want to convert that now to being part of your. You still have time to make a decision on whether or not you want to convert that now to being part of your cash sleeve. So that's what I decided to do. I just decided to leave it there. I'm going to reinvest those dividends. Once my brokerage account depletes, I'm going to move to that one, make the decision, rule of 55, and then move it into a cash bucket. What I had was basically 88% of my money was in growth allocation sleeve, 12% in an income sleeve, and 15% of my expenses were covered from that strategy. So AiRA recognized heavy tech concentration, no crash protection, and there was a big income gap. And in lieu of especially in the fact that I'm going to be potentially soon and needed to figure something out. So what we decided was, let's create a two-sleeve strategy. 20 to 25% is going to be income. 75 to 80% is going to be growth. So it knows that I love NVIDIA, Tesla, Microsoft to some extent, Apple, and then I have another security that I really love, and it's done absolutely amazing. It's called HAII. It's the company. They are been, and this is not a stock suggestion. You do the research on your own. I'm not a financial advisor, but HAII is the company that's making ships for the U.S. Navy, and they just deployed a set of destroyers. I think they're also chartered to make the Virginia-class submarines. I don't know if it's General Dynamics or them. Either way, if you heard the news, Trump is making a huge investment into shipbuilding. We're going to revamp all of our older ships, on top of which the Koreans are coming here to help us build ships. So this is going to be a huge industry. I think at least this administration really cares about the military, and they're putting some money into it and revamping old technologies, and all I can see is growth there. So it knows that I like that, and in order for me to generate the income, I needed to figure out another kind of way to do that. So I've been feeding it these newer kind of covered call strategies as well as dividend securities, one of which is JEPI, other was SPYI, QQQI, and then bonds for the bond sleeve. And it's just trying to generate me 7 to 12% of income every year. I kept on asking it, I said, hey, these are the securities, go find it out yourself. Which one provides good exposure to income in the case of a possible downturn we're not as exposed? And it came up with using SPYI as the security. And AiRA ran a stress test. I told her to run a stress test, and it ran it on the 2020 COVID crash. It ran it in the 2022 bear market, and it ran it in the 2008 crisis. Basically, what it said was the recovery time in my current allocation strategy is 5 months for the 2020 crash. For the 2022 bear market, it took 1.5 years. That's a long time. And then 2008, it was tight, it took 6 years. Okay, that is pretty serious. But I think at that point, if you are seeing a market downturn, that's when we should really be pivoting to putting more money into our income sleeve. It's generating, at least with this strategy, $6,600 passive income. That includes some rental income I get from, but basically it's a 12% yield from using SPYI. So it told me to go to 2 of my accounts. One is at Vanguard, and I basically bought JEPI, which is JP Morgan's income account, and SPYI. And now my growth allocation sleeve is 66%. The income allocation is 34%. I get 65% of my expenses covered in this idea. And I have 55 months of runway from going from 20 to 55 months I've created that I can weather a storm. So 55 months, what's that, about a little over 4 years. I'm in a good position to be able to always have income, have a growth sleeve that continues to compound, and I can protect myself in a market downturn. What I really love about what AiRA has done for me is I can have this conversation in real time with her. And it has the benefit of information and knowledge from the internet, and also all of the stuff that I told it to focus on. I told her, only look at this universe of information. Don't go wild about stuff. Here's all the market returns that I want you to measure against benchmarks. I gave it the Russell 2000, the S&P 500. I gave it inflation rates. I told it about net worth, about individuals. I took out the returns from 2000 to 2012 to simulate bad returns. Those are the benchmarks I always use to stress test my portfolio, and it's come out fantastic. And it always generates me a report. So one of the reports it gave me was basically this PowerPoint presentation. They generated this PowerPoint presentation. So AI helped me to do a lot of things. If you see here, it's a framework over the feelings, right? It actually looked and analyzed at my portfolio. It stress tested everything before it made me those trade recommendations. That to me was the key critical part. If you were to do that on your own, it would take quite a bit of time to do it. And then allows me to have this conversation with her where even I told her, I said, why did you tell me to go into SPYI? Did you look at QQQI? Did you look at DGRO? What about the other ones? And it said, yes, Vincent, I looked at those things and I'm still convinced SPYI is the better one. Fine, we're gonna do it. I'm not losing anything. It's still generating income. Maybe it doesn't generate as much. Maybe it says it's less riskier than DGRO. So I'm buying it. But yeah, it did that. You know, what I told Etta was, I'm a very firm believer in those growth stocks I just told you about. I keep that in my portfolio. I believe in having stocks in your retirement portfolio. Many people out there on the internet have just like the index funds. And I agree with that. You gotta have index funds. I'm gonna be honest with you. The only way I got to where I was by owning individual stocks. My father, same deal. He's worked for a very large tech company, bought it with pension, and he's sitting, I mean, he doesn't even know what to do with his money now. He's trying to give it away. So give it away to my kids. That's fine. But I strongly urge you to maybe take a look at this, use AI as well as Boldin. The other thing also is to use a tool called Portfolio Metrics. Input all your data in there and see where it's coming out as an optimization strategy. I'm a strong proponent of what I've done. If you're interested in looking at ETA, feel free to DM me. I have this PowerPoint presentation that maybe I'll put it up, I don't know, but it generated it for me. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.